back. I'm here at Jen's Awesome Show with Major Dream Williams, one of my favorite people. And it's good to see you again. Much more relaxed this time. It was pretty frenetic in New York.
Yes, yes. Tell me about it. It's always great to see you, Jen. Thank you for having me.
Oh,
You
you're
know?
welcome. You were just telling me about some interesting blockchain ish privacy initiatives that you're working on. Can you tell me a little bit more about that?
Well, yeah, I so what my real sweet spot focuses on art and creatives, culture.
Hmm.
And in certain cases it even focuses on mineral rights and all of these are assets that historically some have performed better than the S&P 500. Um, Historically, these are also the type of assets that gets passed down generationally, have a story, and are very private in a lot of these families, very secretive in a lot of these families. Um, and me and the team, based off of just our background overall as artists, as finance guys, and as innovators and futurists in the space, um, and hearing all of the or knowing most of the problems that high net worth look to solve with with jurisdictions in places like Switzerland, Cayman Islands, and
Hmm.
so we felt that it was imperative that we made sure we created another layer, a privacy layer that focuses on um, safety, security, and really speed, and just like what you would think a high net worth individual would be looking for. So me and the team over the last couple months, we've gotten together and created a new privacy bridge, a
Hmm.
zero knowledge bridge, or as they like to say, as the kids call it, a ZK roll up. Um, and it's done in a little bit different way than others. And I don't necessarily want to give all of our trade secrets away, but
No.
what it's able to do is really teleport your transactions and assets in a very um, private, safe, and fast manner. And yeah, I think that for us is something very, we're very proud of.
Hmm.
Um, and in the same breath, it hopefully it's something that can be utilized in the industry. Because one thing that we don't really talk about, or at least certain things I like to make sure that I, talk about, there is with dollars and cents in the banks, there is always a certain level of liquidity that's out there.
Hmm.
And in blockchain currently, the reason that there's so many ups and downs is really because there's not much liquidity in the system, especially when you're comparing it to something like a Forex, that has, 500 trillion or whatever number they have, you
Hmm.
know, and blockchain and has a mere fraction of that. So and that was one of the things that we focused on, especially if you have friends that have been in the space since 2004, 1999, you know what I mean? And, so that means they have all of these tokens and coins, and not many of them can spend it because these are one taxable events,
Hmm.
and a lot of fractionalization, a lot of tokenizing, a lot of loaning against your crypto. A lot of these involve cashing out your crypto, taxable events, and these weren't necessarily um, big green lights for everyone to run in, especially those who are really in high level finance. They are there to, proof the system, make sure that the system is safe, because only when that money gets into the space do we really have a real go button, because that's where the liquidity is. That's when you'll stop seeing all the rug pulls. That's when you'll stop seeing all of the projects fail because of mismanagement. Is when you have bigger boys in there that come in with, let's say it, regulation or a little bit more
Mhm.
regulation and safety to allow for the average investor or the even less than average investor, the newbie, the normie, to come in and feel safe, because ultimately this is where their 401ks are going to be, and the IRAs are going to be.
I find all of that very interesting because safety is the number one thing that I hear from the majority of my friends. Anytime I say anything about what I'm doing for a living on my Facebook, somebody comes back and says, "Oh, have you been hacked? Are you scammed? Is this real?" Yes, it's real. It's what I do. So it is a much bigger concern than what I'm used to hearing because I'm here. So it's good to hear that that's something that you're working on.
Oh, for sure, for sure. I mean, when I've been in the space since 2014, but it's the space is filled. When I say the space, the Web3 space, blockchain space, crypto space, it's filled with, a bunch of libertarians, a bunch of, anarchists, a bunch of, you know, real white hat, coders and programmers. It's filled with, people coming out of the pandemic and losing everything. It's filled with so many people with so many different um, interests, intentions, languages, and it can't just be looked at from one perspective. It needs time, it needs interaction, it needs all sorts of bumps, bruises, and scars, because unless you go through those, you won't know what to build. And we can all sit and build in our head these amazing things, but you you put the until you put the tire to the road, until you put the rubber to the road, then that's the only time you'll get to see, what people through their needs, wants, and what their heart, what's going on in their heart. Until you actually see them play it out, that's the only way you'll know what you're building for. And over these last, you know, 6 years, we've definitely seen so many things go up, down, based off of ideas and thoughts. And now in this, second kind of phase, third kind of phase wave, you now see those who are real architects and those who are really trying to solve problems as entrepreneurs. They start to build for what people are really looking for solutions for. And when you talk about mega wealth, high end wealth, when you talk about that, one of the biggest things that they are looking for is safety and privacy. And, the blockchain hasn't necessarily been showing that that's what it can do.
Yeah, I think it's kind of the opposite of privacy. I mean, give me half an hour and I can figure out who owns the Wax account that did the thing that somebody was complaining about. So it's not particularly private. It pretends to be.
Exactly. It pretends to be because there's some long key number that people can't remember. But last week, everybody's running to ENS so they can make easier, wallet addresses for themselves so that everybody can
Mhm.
remember. You get what I'm saying? Do you
Oh, I do.
understand
I
how,
do.
just our natural inclination to hold on to things that make us feel relevant bring us back into what we're trying not to be into. So So yeah, it's the human condition is it's interesting, to to really analyze in such a way with all of this new um, technology and application.
Definitely. Yeah, I prefer having my name on most of my things. Not all of them, but most of them because then I can find myself easily, but I don't have a lot that I would want hidden, but I do have a few things I might want less visible. So, and
There you
and
go.
that's kind of where that balance is. And if it ever gets to the point where blockchain is used for things like, say, the deed to my house, I don't want that out there.
No, no,
No,
you don't.
I
No, you
want
don't.
that buried somewhere where I know it exists and nobody else needs to.
Or like your will or
Yeah.
your estate planning, even though if it, and especially if all of this is done as a smart contract on code, on chain.
Hmm.
One of the first websites I bought when I bought a bunch of websites in the beginning, when Jeff bought NFT the movie, and he and I went on a bunch of website buying things, and one of the things I bought was NFT confessions, and
Ooh.
because of that same reason, right there, because I if anyone ever saw the movie Inside Man, it was a Spike Lee film that he did about some of the banks that got started down on Wall Street and how they were hiding all of this, Nazi loot and all of this stuff. And it's the purpose of having safe deposit boxes. It's the purpose of having things that you can just tuck away. You know where it's at, or somebody knows where it's at if something were to happen to you, and you can just tuck it away and keep it safe. And people like privacy. I mean, I'm not saying that. The one thing that I want to make sure is on blockchain are the way governments are run,
Yes.
are decisions that affect the public, and that goes for companies as well. Many of these companies are public utilities now, so the way that they work, these things have to be out there.
Yes.
But to a certain point, I do believe that the if you go to the process of acquiring assets and growing assets to a certain degree, you become a target.
Yep.
You become a target. And, most people, growing up, we used to walk around with your big, gold jewelry, walking, you wanted to walk with it out because it showed that you had a level of toughness, or you had a level of backing, not just that you wanted to show off, but that, yeah, I have enough juice that you're not going to do anything. You're just going to admire me and I'm going to walk on by. And, and that was because you could have defended yourself. You feel that you could defend yourself. Nowadays, you are now your own bank, and that's a whole different defense mind and model that you run with. It doesn't have to do with physically fending off someone. Well, at least let's hope it doesn't. But it doesn't have to be that. But it has to be. You have to be present. You have to be aware that every time I log in and I put my wallet address there, this is possible, that is possible. They're not attacking me on the streets with physical things. They're sending links, little lines of code that I get to click on,
Hmm.
and all of these components and pieces that we used to use all the time, like mindlessly. Now that mindless click can mean I just lost $40,000, or
Hmm.
they just hacked me for $400,000, and it's just and these things happen, and a lot of
Yeah.
times it's the developers. They're doing the hacking, or somebody that sweet talked them into, or but the point is that it's a whole new ecosystem, and the thoughts of protection and protecting oneself are different than what they are in the real world.
I would agree. This is absolutely fascinating and not at all what I thought we'd be talking about. This is
you know,
perfect.
yeah, you just have to catch me when because my day really, at 4 o'clock today,
Hmm.
I could probably get off of a conversation that's totally different. You catch me on a totally different vibe, but all week, and this has to do with New York, really. New York is a city that never sleeps. It's
Hmm.
financed, and with raising capital for all of the projects I'm involved in, and I wrote down the other day how many projects I'm involved in, and 22.
Wow.
Yeah, and they're definitely not all mine. I advise on quite a few, and but when raising money for projects, you still have to. It's not just because they raise money in crypto. It's just not crypto willy nilly. This means it's still because every protocol has to understand that they are setting precedent, that they are making the ecosystem more more sought after or feared.
Hmm.
With every hack, with every failed um, algorithmic token, with all of these projects, or all of these, really, I can't even call a lot of them projects. A lot of these are just tests. Many things, like our project is, we've been working on it about a year and a little bit over a year and a half now. And for us to get to this point, definitely took a lot of bumps and bruises, but the goal ended up being we had to shift mindset,
Hmm.
more than just, oh, let's use our money transmitter license and just move things back and forth. Yeah. Let's just, it was like, wait, hold up. What's the real issue here? Oh, there's not enough liquidity in the whole, asset class. How do we get it there? Ah, let's start talking and sitting with regulators. Let's start talking and sitting with governments. Let's start talking and sitting with banks. Let's start talking and sitting with the people that we are supposed to be disrupting, and give them a level of relevance. Like,
Hmm.
it takes all of us to make this thing go round. And we're not trying to replace the system. We're just trying to optimize it. And I think with just a shift of an adversarial, focus to something that's truly Web3, collaborative, creator economy, collaborative. The thing is that once they realize what we're doing, or once they realize that, hey, here's the safe way to do it, or we're still the innovators. You get That's the thing
Yes.
about it. Like, we're coming back to help you and show you what you guys need to do for the things that we built up there. And yeah, once we got down that road, we felt that we started to really hit our stride, and build the correct kind of end-to-end solution that supports not just finance and traditional finance, but also creates you know a level of democratization for these other type of finance tools. I'm Jamaican.
Hmm.
I and my family, we own property in Jamaica, and years ago I tried to go back and work on the property. And if it was just agriculture, it'd been like, yeah, it makes sense. But no, this was a 300-foot um, high cliff face on a plot of land that's about 800 hectares, and it's all limestone. The property provided the aggregate to build the West Coast, North Coast Highway of Jamaica. And I had gone back to Jamaica years ago and try to work, try to take care of the property and build on it and develop it into hotel, resort, and a whole this right here was the generational kind of move for the family. And we own the property outright, so it shouldn't be anything. Let me just go to a bank. Can we leverage this, please? And I tell you this, I didn't realize how much politics played a role. Um, the time, I came back down to the island like a Jamaican. Like, it was like, you know what
Hmm.
you should do, it was really annoying. So and this is purposefully why I really focus on culture, because I realize how nuanced culture is, even as I call myself a Jamaican. I grew up privileged, one. Two, I grew up too American to be called Jamaican. And I grew up in America too Jamaican to be called American. So it was just my whole little lane by myself. And with that, you develop a kind of aggregate aggregated mindset,
Hmm.
which helps me here. Being able to be right brain, left brain, and aggregate at real time as things come in and change isn't easy. But
Hmm.
when you've been doing it all your life, it comes across easy and simple. But it's definitely, unless you know how to access it, it's pretty annoying for most. you know,
Yeah, I
it's
see
pretty
it.
annoying for most. Most people like to get lost in what they do, and when you have somebody that's like, hey, it's so thank goodness for blockchain and Web3, or else I don't know what I'd do with myself.
Yeah, that's definitely a thing. I can't imagine being in between two cultures and having, I'm hoping, the best of both.
Well, that's what we always hope. I definitely look to highlight, or at least what are the things that resonate with me most, or the things that make me feel, happy or joyous, and try to share that. And I feel, it's definitely fueled my philosophy in this space, and showcasing and hopefully highlighting, the mindset of an 80s New York, 90s New York hustlers mindset, and the nimbleness, the ability to learn, the ability to protect, to kind of see around the corners, and jump on trends and lead trends and so forth. I'd like to show, or my hope is that those who either grew up in that life, or took their skills and are now maybe in the corporate world and have learned more skills on top of that, but can relate to me at that base level. Maybe this is their time to leave their corporate job and come into this more decentralized, and this space that is building out the next 2, 3, 400 years.
I like that. So, two questions. Almost a strengths and difficulties, but not quite. What's the biggest difficulty you've had culturally in the last, say, 5 years in the Web3 space?
Oh, that's a good question. That's a good question. I would say the biggest thing culturally is that there's just not enough women. I mean, culturally speaking, like I need women around me a lot. But I would say the biggest thing that, because look, okay, let's answer that two ways. So aesthetically, you want to have more people who kind of get it, right? And when I say aesthetically, so that we're talking about a time manner here. We're talking about people that grew up between a certain, what are those people called? Not boomers, Gen X, Z. I mean, Gen Xers. Um, like if you're born in like 1980 to like 2000 or 1980, you know what I mean, or 70s to
Yeah.
90s. That like that group right there, they had to go do stuff, right? You know what I mean? You might get affected by computers and stuff, but they had to end up going to do stuff in corporate world, corporate America, and get like swept up in that. So now the people who are leading this next iteration of where the world is going, a lot of them don't have that sense of relevance, time, tough skin, those type of things that we necessarily had to go to, and we had to get up and turn the TV channel, and you know because I think the people that live during those eras, they have a certain level of authenticity that is kind of like in the cake. But because the time that the world was kind of going through, it took a lot of them and moved them out of what could have been um, something better for art, culture, and so forth, and move them into a lot of these corporate environments. And then you also want to wrap the that war on drugs that took a lot of the other innovative people off the streets and put them away. So now there's a group that could be leading that is tucked away in corporate jobs, and now they're tucked into their 401ks, and family and everything got them kind of, wow, okay, so we're bogged in right here. And then you have a group that you know were trying to work with what they were given, but got regulated out of the market and have been tucked away. So now so now you leave the kids of those folks and people to now build this new world, right? And whether they got the whole idea or the full idea from their parents or big brothers and sisters, what they're doing now is very, very ambitious, but there's just it's almost a microwave society kind of aspect, so what
Mhm.
I see that is missing is ultimately that level of soul, that level of dexterity, you know so I'd like to hope that that's kind of the things that we're trying to bring in and tap into, those personalities that are looking at the tech and like, oh, that'd be cool to be involved in. Or they may say, you know what, I'd rather just go into entertainment or into sports or into the corporate world. And I'm like, no, this is the place where you need to be. Um, so, so I would say culturally, looking at the space, that's probably what I miss, the most. Most people are gonna look. Most people say, as another conversation I hear is that there's not enough inclusion or enough minorities, and
Mhm.
and I'm like, have you been to the Ukraine? Like, and now I get you there in war and Poland. There are so many female developers there, so many female developers, and I'm like, have you guys been to Africa? And like, everybody there that develops is black. So
Mhm.
my thing is, we live for something that's supposed to be so global. We sure limit our view narrowly and create these echo chambers that really reiterate things that probably aren't as much as we think, because
Yep.
if women that code are at home knowing that they code, but they're hearing there's no women in here, and they're not necessarily wanting to like branch out and like be the woman in the, you know, kind of thing. Guess what? They're
Mm-hmm.
not going to show out. You
Yep.
know, like I think so. So this is definitely why I'm more encouraged about this space, because the verification of information is is really the key. Where does the information come from? Who is it coming from? Because a lot of these narratives are, yeah, look, when I say we need more women in the space, yeah, granted, you could walk into a room of 100 and there's probably 20 to 30. You know,
Yep.
so I would say, you know, 7 to 3. Yeah, I mean, those type of things aren't necessarily bad, but when you think of how many women are in the world and compared to
Mm-hmm.
men, you're like, ah, okay, I get that now. But men aren't men aren't raising children. Men are going to work. So my question is this, and shout out to Israel Wilson for this. I definitely got to give him a shout out for this. He's currently in New Orleans working on what's probably going to be one of the bigger, if not the biggest, Web3 conference for the culture, for the underrepresented. Now, one of the biggest things that he is doing, that for me is the only thing that they need to do, and it's a game changer: provide daycare.
That's huge. I can't
Provide
believe.
daycare.
Yeah.
So,
That.
like, that's what he told me. That I was
Mm-hmm.
like that's not tech. That's not what. That's paying attention. That's being present. You know what I mean? Like, that's
Yes.
really like creating solutions. We're talking about we need more women in here. Well, solve women's problems.
Yes. I have meetings regularly with women, with men. Only one of us went to New York, and it was me. My husband hung out with the kids for a week. It is a thing. If we
Yeah.
could travel somewhere as a family, and especially if there was kids programming, oh my gosh, that would be amazing.
It's like, why isn't there? Why isn't there? Why? Oh, my bad. I guess kids don't have all the money, so we need to get it from all the. No, I mean, like, if we're really trying to build this out, and this is what I'm trying to say, like, if the reason why I teach men, like, you know, I bring in
Mm-hmm.
men's groups, and the reason why I teach them how not how to cook, how to dance, and how to listen. Okay, if you can sing, great. But if you could cook, dance, listen, these three things, in my humble opinion, are sure fire ways to get into the proximity of women.
Yep.
Proximity, because as long as you're in proximity, you then become more comfortable, you then get to interact, and wow, all of a sudden, more women around. And
Mm-hmm.
and you're not being creepy. You know, like
Yep.
the thing is that if you have other ways to interact, you know, with them, and these are things that I've learned over time. You know, if you have different ways to interact with women, then you know more women will be around. Because if guys really realized, and I mean I don't know where this show is about to go, but if guys really realize what women think about, you know, and not in some wild weird way, but it's like we're kind of like you, we're kind of like the same.
Mm-hmm.
And it's a lot of the times what's going on in our own heads and our projections that make things weird, rather than just say, wow, that's just another human going through something. What's up,
Yep.
yo? You know, and yeah, it bugs women out too. Like, I'll come up and just be
Oh
like,
yeah.
cool conversation, and they'll be like, okay, bye, and then leave, and they're like, wait, hold up, what just happened? Like, weren't you
Mm-hmm.
hitting on me? And I'm like, nah, I was just I like women. Like,
Yeah.
it's, you know, nothing wrong with that.
Yep.
And, you know, so it's definitely is something for the culture that focuses on, you know, really building up the soft skills, you know, for those of us, again, because, you know, for all men and women, because we get into habits, you know,
Mm-hmm.
we get into habits, and a lot of us on the road, we're one thing, and then a lot of us when we go back home we're something else.
Yep.
And that right there, that almost, schemic, schizophrenic behavior isn't necessarily the best for us as is. So, I've always been an advocate of well-being, and having, a focus on mental health. And, the first thing that I try to set off in the space when I first got to Puerto Rico, I tried to create this thing called the Happy Healthy House that would be deployed on the conference circuit, so that a lot of these young men and women can just check in and get like a diagnostic and be like, okay, what's my heart working like? And because these things are stressful,
Mm-hmm.
I mean, just going from deal to deal are small cortisol jumps.
Yep.
How many people I've seen in this thing in the beginning, I was like, you were a lot thinner before.
Mm-hmm.
And and these aren't necessarily all developers either that claim that they're sitting all day. These are people that are on the move. But if you don't have that sense of, can't find that grounding,
Yep.
whether you have a team that you can ground with, whether you have a ritual that you start your days off with, whether you have, a place to worship. There's Muslims on in my groups and on my friends, and they make sure they get their 5 prayers in a day. So there's a level of discipline that
Yep.
has to happen. And I feel that a lot of these industries are going to birth because, again, sometimes, like, you just need a big homie to be like, look, explain to me what you did. Explain to me that, because I see your wallet address and it's tracked right to you. Explain that to me. Just help me understand.
Yep.
And there's not enough people. And I'm not saying that being judgy. What I'm just saying that sometimes you just have to step up and not look to just get along.
Yes. I think that's huge. And I think the community aspect is absolutely huge. And if we stop trying to compete with each other all the time, everything would be better.
Oh, oof, tell me about it.
Yeah, that's half the battle. But including families and conferences, I think would bring the stress level down in a very big way for most people. Because anytime you go away, I mean, you're mostly there, but there's that part of you that's thinking, well, how are they? What are they doing? It's not the right time to call. And it sticks. It's not, I mean, are the spaces welcoming to everybody? Yes. Am I in a place where I can pack up and leave my kids and husband for a week? Yes. Do I like it? Not really. I'd rather have them with me.
Yeah. And I think that is the biggest. I think that right there, yeah. When he told me, I was like, of course, duh, wow. And it was just like, and the thing is, if I'm not running around with a toddler, I'm not thinking about that.
Yeah.
But if I'm thinking about who's the next wave I'm pitching to, then you're gonna want families and stuff. Like, it's not like sports teams just go to the athletes. No, they go for generationals. And that wave comes in. When I lived in Beirut, and one of the first times I saw this being done, because it was so well done, and they were so loyal, was in Beirut, is in Lebanon. There was a bar that just started in Beirut, like a little like hole in the wall on a college campus, and it was started by this guy Tony. And Beirut is a place that has always kind of been in conflict a bit, and but he started it during college, and he just catered to the college kids, right? And he stayed open late, cheap drinks, that, and just kept that going, and then opened up another space next to it. Now we had music, right? And then now it's more of a bar aspect rather than a hole in the wall. Then he put in. Then he opened up another little spot. Now he opened up five to seven clubs, lounges in Beirut. But the thing is this, Beirut has a small economy. Remember, there's war going on there from time to
Mm-hmm.
time. Israel, Palestine is next door. Syria's on the other side. Iraq is above it. And they got the water. So they're like, well, I guess we're going to have to go across the water. So they end up in Dubai. A lot of the Lebanese move to Dubai. So
Mm-hmm.
what happens there? Everything that they did in Lebanon, they built in Dubai. So now they go to the things that they know, and he just caters to the Lebanese people. And it's just now the grandparents, the fathers, and it's evergreen. You build yourself, like a flywheel to your project, and that's what Israel went down to New Orleans to do. And
Mm-hmm.
he's I'm very proud of him for that, because sort of like how I see Houston. Um, the thing is about being an early adopter, or as I call us, the cryptonauts, is that you're able to float out there because you're like, okay, I know there's something out there. Let me just, go and create it. And then you'll find these hubs, and you're like, wow. And then this is when I tap back into my, my, not that I was, but I listen to Jay-Z a lot. So, my 80s drug dealer mentality, where it's like you find these little towns and you have the product, which is the knowledge, the fact that this Web3 is coming. And then they're sitting there and they're just like, we need you. And you're just like, okay,
Mm-hmm.
here you go. And then you bring your friends in, and then you build an ecosystem, and then then you teach them how to fish, and then you move on to the next town, and then you build like your little circuit, and then every year you get to do your tour again.
Mm-hmm.
And just come back around and reinforce, and build an organic base. No matter how much we talk about this metaverse stuff, which probably what we should have been talking about, but no matter how much we talk about this metaverse stuff, everything from the real world has to be moved into the metaverse. Okay, so it starts off with
Mm-hmm.
the real world, and that has to be moved to the metaverse. You, as the architects, you and Corey and everyone as the architects, are building it for us as the populace to come in and maneuver and move around and say, oh, we need this, we need that. If I didn't run into this hat store in Buckhead, Atlanta, in real life, I would not have just said, you know what, I'm gonna make my art mob like spot into a hat store. Like, first thing you go
Mm-hmm.
on the level, be like, be like, okay, wow, all right. Well, how do I get upstairs? Well, I got to put one of those hats on. You know what I mean? Like, first thing's a hat
Mm-hmm.
store. It's like, okay, cool. And but if I didn't run into these guys, I wouldn't have been like, you know what? That probably would be the coolest thing to kind of walk into off the store, off the street, because I can then partner up. Then I can partner up with a real hat store and
Mm-hmm.
say, hey, listen, I can help you guys in the metaverse, and my job is to, again, we're blessed. We're builders in the space, and we're like, hey, how can I get you into this? Like, you know what? Hey, it's like, how can I get you into this? How can we help? And yeah, it's mind blowing for a lot, but I feel that in a very short period of time, 5-10 years, which is a short period, I feel it will be commonplace.
I think it probably will, and I'm excited to see what you build. We don't have a hat store yet,
I know,
so
that's what I'm
it's
saying.
exciting.
The hat
Yeah.
store is gonna be fun.
Yes, it'll be a blast. And you're going to be on Etheria in one of the new ETH worlds. So tell me then, you're going to have an awesome hat store. What do you think makes a good metaverse neighbor? Who do you want moving in next to you?
Oh,
Who
wow.
who and what?
Wow, that would be amazing. You know what? I would love to have, not for nothing. I mean, if I'm just gonna like corner the line on hats, you know, whether it be now, because we have to now establish like real world stuff, like what is normally around hat stores or what is interesting about hats. So something that would cater to maybe people that go to like Burning Man,
Mm-hmm.
because you get your hat, you get your nice hat next door, and then you know you go next door and you'll, oh man, wow. That would be like, you know, selfishly, I would love to have some sort of sarong, sundresses, like, you know, something like, because if you can get a nice hat, then you'd want, and the reason why I say sarong and sundresses is because sarongs are universal,
Mm-hmm.
right? And I guess sundresses could be universal too. Shout out to all my, you know, he, she's and non-binary, you know, non-gender folks out there, you know. So I would definitely like to have a and ooh, yeah, sarongs, sundresses, and some cool angel wings and something like that. Something like that. Like,
That sounds fun.
yeah, keep it fun. Yeah, keep it fun. It's like I, you know, it's tough for me to really be serious for way too long, just because, you know, you know, I just, it's just the vibe, you know, the energy, it's right. But I feel that those two kind of go together. Hat store, you know, sundress, you know, sarongs, you know, those things. And then we can have our virtual. We can put them in Burning Man. Burning Man is coming up soon, so
That's true.
they could use that on the playa. Um, what else? What else would be fun? And maybe on the other side, ooh, a I don't know, none of these sound, because I was like, yeah, like a piano store. But you know, podcast studio.
I like that too.
Uh, I, I figure this much. Who's ever on the block, they are definitely going to have some fun. Maybe like a bakery. Ooh! I know. A perfume. A like a shop that has all of these fragrances, and you can create like your own little like fragrance potion. Like those are cool. Like those type of like cool little interesting things.
That would be fun. That would be a lot of fun.
Yeah.
Well,
But
you've
let's see.
given me lots to think about, as always.
But I think did you have another question? I think I only answered one. You asked me
I
what's the
kind of
biggest
had a
thing in
couple
culture?
other questions.
Hmm.
I also kind of have to run. I'm running straight
Okay.
into an art installation from one thing direct to the next.
Ooh,
So it's the other favorite part of the job.
yay! When
I
do we
love
get
the
part
fine
two?
art stuff. But I want my fine art on a sarong now. So
There you
yeah,
go.
my fine art NFT on a sarong with a
You
nice hat.
see? Okay, there
Mhm.
we go. You see? Now, the beauty about all of these is that um I've always had a thought about the hats and the hat stores, but I figure whenever you put this hat on, we're gonna be able to upload either a memory, idea, thought, or something, and really establish ultimately what a NFT is it's a basket,
Mhm.
you know, and you know, if we can have a couple of hats that are just a basket of thoughts, each with like a different theme. So people get to walk around with your basket of thoughts, and it's a lot of fun things we can do.
That is a lot of fun. I like that idea too. No surprises. Thank you very much for joining me. This has been delightful. And if
Anytime.
anybody out there is watching and thinks that Major Dream would be a perfect neighbor, he's going to be in Etheria. So keep your eyes out.
Yeah, it's
Yes.
gonna be on. Trust me, there's gonna be a lot of Jamaican music going on. There's gonna be a lot of
Good.
dancing going on, and you know, and we also probably sell some microgreens.
Yeah, we're good with that.
Definitely, definitely. Well, Jen, thank you so much. I
Thank
love
you.
being on your cool show. Wait, okay, hold up. Am I calling it right? The cool show, the dope ass show, Jen's dope ass show,
Close enough. Jen's awesome show.
Jen's awesome show, because Jen is awesome.
I'll go with any of the names. They're all recognition.
Oh, thank you so much. Thank you for
Thank
letting me
you.
chat. This has been such a great break in
Yes,
my day because yeah, the morning was a little bit intense, and we're gonna delve back in. But LFG.
absolutely.